What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another edition of Cover One Buffalo. As always, I'm your host, Aaron Quinn, and joining me tonight is our big off-season free agent acquisition here at Cover One. You all know him, Rob Quinn. What's going on, my man?
Not too much. How you doing, Aaron?
Doing great, man. I'm happy to have you on. It's great to have you as part of the team, and welcome, man.
Yeah, glad to be part of it. You guys had an awesome thing going, so had to join forces and another Quinn here. So that is.
Yeah, no, and I think you've been a great addition already to the team so far. We're getting a lot of good posts. So if you haven't checked out Rob's stuff, go over to cover1.net. He's already putting out some great content in regards to the Bills. So it's better than a lot of the stuff that I've seen from you lately, man. I feel like you're inspired right now to really get the fans riled up for the season. So if you haven't checked it out, go over there, cover1.net. And while you're there, check out the premium content listing there. Right now for $10 you get the premium content for a year from the date of purchase. I don't know how long Eric is running that, but it's a killer deal. I pay easily between $10 and $20 for draft guides, for training camp guides, and you're getting top of the line premium content. You like the content you get for free from Cover One, the premium content's even better. Access to the video library, access to the Slack channel. You get all that for a full year for $10. It's a killer deal. You really can't beat it. And like I said, I don't know how long Eric's running that deal. So hop over there, check it out, get on the deal before he pulls it. And then when you're, if you like the Cover One content, get on your phone. We have the iOS app. It's iOS and Android. So get on whatever phone app store you've got, download the app, push notifications right to you. So when Rob's dropping hot fire content, that's going to come right to you at work or wherever you're at through your phone. So check all those out. And as always, like, subscribe on all your social medias and iTunes and all that. Give us a review because we can't do this without the fans, and you guys keep us going, and we appreciate that. So Rob, man, you ready to talk about some tight ends tonight?
Absolutely.
So yeah, we've been breaking down all the position groups. Right now is kind of a slow time of year to talk about stuff. So, and actually, before we get into the tight ends, we do have a little bit of news that we want to talk about. Rob, I'm sure you saw this. I'd love to get your thoughts on this too. Richie Incognito, John Wawrow from your buddy there from the AP. Got a text from Richie that he's doing well. He's back home, in good spirits. Talked about the team a little bit, talked about how he appreciates Brandon Beane, McDermott, and that he loved what Buffalo was able to do, and now he's looking for a job. So it seems like he's back in the normal, or what we know as Bills fans as normal Richie mind state. So, Rob, what were your thoughts on seeing that story break today?
I mean, it's good to see that, he's back and at least feeling better, because you never want to see that anybody go through an issue like that, and it's kind of hard to discuss what he's really going through mentally. But from a football standpoint, Richie's Richie. He's outspoken, and he said he's working harder than ever, and he's going to come back. But you just have to be happy to see that, because he seemed like he was getting things on track when he was with the Bills, and to see something like that happen, like, you don't want that to happen to anybody.
No, so, and it seemed to fall off the rails a little bit, and I wonder how much of it is due to what happened with Eric Wood. He had mentioned that in the text. Eric Wood's his brother and his rock, and I don't know how much that impacted the later things that happened. What's your opinion, taking off your bias, Bills cap? What's your opinion on, is Richie going to be able to find a home here this summer? I mean, there's not a lot of spots left. He's got some stuff come back up, worked back, into maybe who teams thought maybe who he was. Do you think he can find a home?
I really doubt it. I mean, he's getting up there in age, and I think the Bills, even if this incident didn't occur, he would have been gone probably at the end of the season anyway. So you and I have talked about this before, that it's probably a year early. Get rid of him a year early rather than too late, kind of like the Belichick model. But
right.
I mean, I don't know. It'll be hard for him to catch on, because like you said, his reputation from the Dolphins incident and now this, I think that it's just too much for a team to gamble on at that age.
Yeah, I think the entirety of it, right? The age and the incidents is just going against him in favor. I think the only way he jumps on is if there's like a ton of injuries to a team and a team just is really desperate to fill a hole. But I don't think right now he's going to be sitting waiting for a while before anyone even picks up the phone to call him to even give him a workout. I do think that he could still contribute to a team, but it's going to be very difficult for him to do that with the incidents that pop back up. So I wish him nothing but the best of luck, and I hope he takes care of his self before his career and gets all that squared away and straightened up. And I'm sure we're going to hear more about the incidents and how it all went down, and him saying it was his health while he's retiring and then coming back. I'm sure somebody's going to dig into that story a little deeper, and we'll hear more from Richie. I don't think we've heard the last of Richie yet, but other than Richie, we don't really have much news. It's not a great time for it. So we've been breaking down all the position groups. Right now, we're on to tight ends tonight. So if you haven't listened to any of the podcasts before, go back and check them out. They're all available on iTunes or cover1.net. You can listen to all the offensive positions. Tight ends, the last one we're covering, and then we're on to the defense, which I think is going to be a lot of fun to rip through this young, awesome defense. So tight ends, man, it's a group that doesn't get talked about a ton right now. It was a group that I felt like I kept bringing it up during the draft that I wouldn't have been upset if they drafted one because I'm not really sure what is going to be the future of this position. But we'll start at the top. Charles Clay, man. What are your thoughts on the top starting guy, Charles Clay? We all know him now. What's your thoughts?
You know, I've always liked Charles Clay, and he's not going to be that guy that gets 1,000 yards a season, obviously. I mean, he's going to get you that 50 catches, probably 500-600 yards and a few scores, but he's really underrated as a blocker, and I think it's going to be valuable in Rick Dennis and Brian Dable's offense. Eric had a good post on Clay's role and what it would be going forward in this offense and how there's a lot of read option routes that he's going to have to do, and he's talented receiver, catching the ball in short to intermediate stuff. His knee is really the big thing that fans are going to harp on, and he's not going to play 16 games. He misses like every Wednesday practice during the year, but I think he's going to have a bigger role this year than a lot of people think, and I think he does get overlooked a bit.
Yeah, I do think he gets overlooked by fans. I've been arguing with fans for a couple of years now because they talk about he's overrated, he's overpaid, he's not that good, but I mean, Garrison, who's in the Slack channel, and if you're a premium subscriber, you can get in the Slack channel, kind of brought up a great point that I think there's a debate to be made for him being one of the best tight ends in Bills history. I think he's up there with Reamersma. So I don't know that he's overpaid or overrated or whatever. I think there is some concern with the injury, but in his time with the Bills here, he's played 13, 15, and 13 games. So it's not like he's missing huge chunks like Sammy Watkins was. He hasn't been out for half a season or anything like that. I do think it's more of a maintenance issue, which there's concern that can flare up at any time. But I think fans are mad because it seemed like a big contract and the guy hasn't been to the level of a Gronk, which he's not ever going to be. He's not that guy. But I think I'm really struggling here with Clay in the future because I am concerned about the knees, 29 years old. When he is playing, he's definitely the biggest threat outside of LaShawn McCoy in the offense. So you definitely want to keep that guy around. And after him, I mean, I know fans like Nick O'Leary, but really there's a huge drop-off when Clay's not on the field. So the Bills are going to have a big conversation to have this next off season with, do they get rid of him with the potential out in 2019, or do they pop another $4.5 million on the cap and keep a 30-year-old guy with a terrible chronic knee issue? What are your thoughts there?
I mean, I'd probably keep him because I think a lot of people look at the top tight ends in the league, but those guys have quality quarterbacks. If you look at the production of the top tight ends, they're tied to the quarterback, and that's why I think Clay's a bit underrated. I mean, he does a lot. He moves around H-back, and he'll split out and play inline, and he's one of the best blockers in the league too. So, like you said, I mean, it'll be hard to justify the knee injury and the cap, but I think with the cap going up, that extra money isn't really going to be that big of a difference. I think they do need some size there, as him and O'Leary are kind of the short passing guys, but I mean, behind them, there's really unproven Jason Kroom and Kaiir Ford, and those are projects, but they do need to add some size there, I believe.
Yeah, I think they definitely need size. I would like to see a little bit more speed. I know Clay has some. He's shown bursts of it. It would be nice to get one of a more modern tight end the way the position's going. But I don't think
Right.
when you look at the 2019 free agents, I don't think that there's a good argument that I could see that anybody is going to be out there, even for cheaper, that is going to bring the level of production that he's going to bring in. The Bills are going to have a ton of money, whether or not they move on from Charles Clay anyway. So I'm not worried about freeing up cap space. They're going to have the cap space to make the moves that they want to. And when you look at pass catchers, though, that 2019 class of free agents isn't going to be anything to write home about. And I don't think you get a guy better than Clay. I think what they need to do is look into the draft and find a young replacement for Clay for the future. But in 2019, I feel like he's got to be on the roster, even with that 4.5.
Yeah, definitely.
So O'Leary, man, this guy is even a bigger conundrum to me because I was very excited when they drafted him. He's one of those typical guys that, has some good success in college, came in, that doesn't wear gloves, tough guy thing, traditional tight end.
He's
I
got
don't
a
know if you
grandfather
knew.
too.
Yeah, I don't know if you knew he didn't wear gloves, but he doesn't. And but he hasn't had much production. In fact, last year he had his best year ever, and it was still pretty poor overall. He's got a nice yards per reception at 14. It seems like he always picks up a first down when he does get the ball. But 22 receptions, 322 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I don't know, man. Like, is he good? This has to be the year for him to do anything, don't you think?
I think so, but I mean, he was a day 3 pick, and like you said, coming out of Florida State, he had a lot of hype and a lot of fanfare coming out of there with that national championship team. And I think the expectations were higher than what to expect, and he really kind of outplayed what I thought he would. Like you said, he's always getting the first down, and he's improving. I mean, he's a strong guy. He's impressed me, but obviously you can upgrade from him.
Yeah, and I mean, he's in a contract year, so I don't know what type of market value a Nick O'Leary is going to generate, but is that how you fix the tight end position going forward? Is bring back, keep Charles Clay and then sign Nick O'Leary to a more long-term deal? I think he's always a tight end too, so I don't even know what that type of deal looks like. But they're still going to have to bring another guy in because then you got Logan Thomas right behind him, who's another developmental guy. So either one of these guys is going to step up and be that tight end too and take that job, or one of them's not going to make the roster in 2019. Would you think they keep all 3 of these guys? Because they're all Thomas and O'Leary are both on contract years, and obviously Clay's got the 2019 out, like we talked about.
Yeah, like I think O'Leary's a replacement level guy. I mean, I guess you're content with him when he's on the team, I guess. But like you said, I mean, you can obviously stand to move on. I don't think it's someone that you're gonna really get into a bidding war for.
Right.
But Logan Thomas does intrigue me. The size, athleticism is obviously there, but we see that all the time, like with the undrafted free agent guys, like always kind of turn heads at training camp and all that. But I mean, as far as O'Leary, I don't think that he's a game changer, but I think he could be a solid reserve role player for the Bills this year.
Yeah, and I think that he can be more than we've seen. I think, like I said, he had a career year last year, but he did show glimpses of there was a couple of times where he was wide open, and obviously Tyrod had struggles getting the ball to guys. So I think some of it is, like you said, quarterback dependent. If either of these guys is playing with a Drew Brees type guy, I think those stats go way up for both of them, both Clay and O'Leary. But one thing I don't know much about, and I know you and Eric have covered a lot more about it, is, especially with those two and maybe even Logan Thomas, since those are probably going to be the 3 guys that make the 53-man roster. How are these guys going to be used in this Daboll scheme compared to last year? Like, what are we going to be looking at, expecting to see on game day, the difference at the tight end position?
I just think we're going to see more. I actually don't see Clay really changing a ton of what he's been doing because, he's not a guy that's going to stretch the field. Right. But he's going to get open on those play action and kind of squeeze past the defender in the middle of the field. And he'll be blocking in line like he usually does. But I think with the Earhart-Perkins offense, he's going to have more opportunities to kind of use his veterans mindset, I guess, and really get open in those option routes. But it's all going to be on a connection with Josh Allen or McCarron or Peterman, whoever starts at quarterback. So I think it's going to be dependent on that. And we saw, I know Brian Dable can adapt. So I think he's going to try to get the ball in Clay's hand. Like you said, other than McCoy, he's probably going to see the most targets. But it's really going to depend on the quarterback.
Yeah, sure. And especially if it ends up being Josh Allen, I would think that he's going to rely heavily on the tight end. I mean, I know that's a thing that most rookies, they find that tight end, especially in zones, they find the spots and just find that tight end. So one thing that I'm a little nervous about, it did seem like, we had our issues with Tyrod Taylor, but it seemed like he and Clay had a pretty consistent connection. I think Clay was really, outside of Shady, the most consistent player that Tyrod had played with in his time in Buffalo. So they had that connection. Are you worried about Clay being able to establish a connection with any of these quarterbacks during a quarterback competition summer, or do you think that it doesn't matter who they throw out there, he's going to get his?
Yeah, I don't really think it matters too much. I mean, you're looking at 2 6th-round, 5th-round draft picks, and
yeah, come on, 5th round.
And Josh Allen is a rookie. Obviously, I know he's going to be great, but I mean, plays all of his production's coming on the short 0 to 9 yards, the out routes, the drags, the flats, like those. That's what he's going to be. He can get some yards after the catch, make guys miss, but he's going to be a check down guy at worst. So he's going to get the targets.
All right, so we've talked about the starters a little bit, these guys that are up at the top. I mean, they are what they are, and we can get back to them a little bit as far as what you really feel like the predictions for the year will be. But at the bottom of the roster here sitting, obviously Logan Thomas is kind of floating in the middle of being at the bottom of the roster and being a guy that could be on the 53. Definitely still a developmental guy. I think obviously he's got to do something this year to prove that he's worth a roster spot, because right behind him they got Keith Tobridge, Kari Lee, and Jason Kroom. I don't really know much about any of these guys except for Tobridge and Kroom were undrafted free agents a year ago. I do know Kroom was a wide receiver coming out at Tennessee and then had a pretty devastating knee injury. During that time, his coach said, hey, why don't we switch it to tight end? You got that big body of the modern tight end. So that intrigues me, that story. I know the knee injury set him back to be undrafted. He didn't have a ton of production in college. So, and then he gets here to the Bills. And I think I don't know what he injured, but he did have another injury in the summer. Wasn't able to do anything last training camp to kind of show us what he is. So he's a huge unknown. Tobridge, I don't really know much about him. Obviously, he stuck around here for a year as an undrafted guy. But any of these guys, do you know anything about? Do you think anyone can shake up and take Logan Thomas's job or anything like that? What do you think?
No, Kroom is intriguing to me just because even with that knee injury, he still ran a 4.69. He's 6'5", 250. So I think that from a measurable standpoint, he's kind of what you're looking for there. As far as size and a big oversized receiver, really, which is what the tight end position is evolving to in the NFL. But I don't think you can really count on any of these guys to really step up and come in and make an impact. But at the same time, you hope that one of the guys will develop or stand out in training camp enough to at least warrant some snaps and playing time.
Sure.
But like you said, I mean, none of these guys really jump off the screen at you and say, oh, wow, like this is someone that needs to get on the field.
Right. Yeah, and I think maybe one of them sticks around on the practice squad. Just with Clay's knee injury, you want to have one of those guys there just in case he needs a week off. But do you think that they keep 3 tight ends on the active roster? We've talked about it before with wide receiver and running back. Those right now they might not be stacked as far as like they're not very good outside of the top guys, but there's a lot of numbers at running back and wide receiver right now, and there's going to be a very interesting balancing act this summer to see, are they going to keep 5 or 6 receivers? Are they going to keep 3 or 4 running backs? Depending on how those positions fall out, what do you think that will impact tight end of keeping 2 or 3, or do you think 3 is solid and that's how it's going to be?
I think you got to keep 3 just in the case of an injury or someone goes down for that reason. But like you said, there's not a lot to really choose from at running back and receiver, and you need to get those targets there. Dable at Alabama with the Patriots, he's using 2 tight end sets. So I think 3 is going to going to be the number they keep, and it's probably going to be Logan Thomas.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's going to be. I think he just has the physical assets that even if he isn't developing as quick as the team would like, it's hard for coaches to see the size and the speed. And a lot of times coaches, I think Foster is going to be the same way. He might hang on the practice squad, even though he's not physically there yet. It's just having those intent. You can't teach speed. You can't teach size. So coaches always think that just one more year with this guy, or if I get this guy for a little bit longer. And I think Logan Thomas is going to experience some of that. I think he's almost hit his ceiling at tight end. I don't think it's getting much higher, but I think he hangs around the roster for another year here just because of those things. So you think we're going to see a lot of 2 tight end sets here with O'Leary and Clay?
Yeah, I think you have to. I think it's going to be a run-first offense. I mean, you don't want any of those 3 guys out there throwing 40 times a game. So McCoy's going to be a bell cow, and you're going to need those guys in line blocking that power run scheme. And so, yeah.
And I know O'Leary's gotten a little bit better at blocking, but what have you seen there? I mean, is he a reliable blocker at this point in his career?
I mean, he's got those little T-Rex arms, but he's a strong dude, and
he's got a nice frame.
He's willing. Yeah. He's willing. So sometimes getting in the way can be just as good as driving a guy off. But I mean, Clay, I think, is solid there. O'Leary has improved each year so far, so we'll see. But
I do urge fans to go back if you have Game Pass or whatever. I think that's a knock on Clay because I think people think he's just a catch first tight end. I think people pigeonhole Clay with his contract and with his athleticism at times into just this like modern tight end. But like you said, he does the H-back thing. He can block. He really does it all. And he's really improved at that blocking. If you go back and watch some of the Game Pass, I think Eric had mentioned it at one point, like, because I was in the same group of thinking like, oh, this guy's just he's a liability in the run game, but he actually isn't. He's actually a really good blocker, and a few of his blocks led to huge shady runs and big time touchdowns too. So go back, watch some of that stuff, because I do think that is one of the areas. I've heard everything from like Clay sucks, he's overrated, they need to move on from him, but I think he does a lot of the little things that don't show up in box scores, like big time catches and things like that, but that when the coaches watch it, it matters big time to them, and they're willing to sit through Wednesdays off and treatments on the knee because they know on Sunday when he's in, he's going to do the right things. He's not going to miss his assignments. He's going to get open and be a reliable target if the quarterback is willing to get him the ball, which hopefully Josh Allen's going to be slinging it all over the field, that rocket, and relying on Clay a little bit. So do you know anything about the upcoming tight end class or anything like that? I know you watch a little bit more college football than I do. Is there any future at this position, that isn't on the Bills roster?
I haven't really started diving in yet. I had to decompress from this year's draft, but every year we see it's kind of the oversized wide receivers always kind of switch to tight end because it's just a mismatch as it is. So I think there'll be names every single year as the NFL kind of evolves that way. But I'm happy with Clay, so I think he can contribute. And
how do you feel about Clay as a fantasy prospect? I'm not playing fantasy football this year. I'm taking a whole year off, so I'm not giving any fantasy advice. I'm not playing. I'm not doing it. What do you think about it? Because when I am playing, I do the homer thing and try to take some Bills, and I always end up with Shady and Clay and some third, fourth Bills wide receiver or something there. So what do you think about him as an option for any of the guys that play fantasy out there?
Yeah, I mean, I've taken Clay the last 3 years, and I don't think that any Bills receiving target is going to really put up those kind of numbers that you want consistently, but I think he'll kind of get those first downs, get 3-4 catches a game, 40 to 60 yards. But as a fantasy option, I don't know if you want to take him because it'll be probably 2 or 3 big games and then not much.
Yeah, I think we've talked about it, the other positions, and if this is your first time listening, you can go back and check out the other positions. But I think everybody I've talked to, all the guests that we've had on, and talking about Bills and fantasy, it doesn't look good as far as the offensive side of the ball. So maybe just draft the Bills defense and hope for the best.
Milano's going to make plays.
That's right. Milano might have.
But I mean, like you said, I think his value is going to be beyond the stat sheet, kind of. Yeah. So it'll it's going to be a rough year if you draft some Bills receivers or tight ends, I think.
Sure, and I think even running back might struggle at times, just being so one-dimensional. But so, what have you got coming up, man, for content? Because I think we usually run the podcast longer, but this isn't a group that there's a whole lot to talk about. So unless you guys have questions about tight ends in the chat, bring them in. But what do you got coming up for content here with Cover One?
I'm going to be looking at kind of ranking the top Bills acquisitions of the off season, and then I'm also going to be doing a piece on the offense as a whole, how it's bound to improve, even though you kind of look at it on paper and it's not that impressive. But if you look at last year's, at least statistically, it was one of the worst in the league, like 31st in passing. The run game was obviously good, but I mean, I think Dable's going to be able to get the most out of these guys. He's proven that he can adjust. I mean, even with Cleveland, he had their offense improve. He's found a way to get the most out of what the guys he's given. So I think it'll be better than people think, although it's probably not going to be fantastic.
Sure. And since we didn't have you on and you're having that article coming out, I don't want to steal any of the thunder from your article, but since we've already talked about some of the other position groups, do you think that, say, like the losses on the offensive line or the lack of depth at wide receiver, we all know what's at running back and quarterback. Well, we don't know what's at quarterback because we haven't seen Josh Allen do anything in a set of pads yet. But do you think that some of the losses, I know people are very concerned about the offensive line in particular and those losses there. Do you think that is going to hinder your prediction of them improving?
I think it has to. I mean, Richie and Eric Wood, they're veterans, and obviously those guys know what they're doing. But
sure,
the unit's going to have to come together as a whole, and it's not going to be one guy. But from what I've heard about Russell Bodine, I mean, not the greatest. Joe Goodberry, he's a Bengals guy, and he was not a fan. But I do like Wyatt Teller a lot. I think he can come in and play.
Sure.
John Miller sounds like he's on the track to take back his spot at right guard. I did like him a lot. So we'll see. But I do think that I don't think you should write them off just yet.
Your boy Jordan Mills.
Yeah, that's another discussion. But
you still got to get that. I know you were a premium subscriber before you came over here. And I know that you had asked Eric once for a Jordan Mills bloopers video. And I don't think you ever received it. So we got to get on Eric to whip up that content for you.
Yeah, he's doing belly flops out there, getting bench pressed, but
he did get better. You got it. There was improvement for Jordan Mills.
Yeah, somehow he finds a way to keep that job. So,
wow, there isn't a whole lot competition wise for him. Yeah. So again, guys, Eric Pruden seconds the request for Mills bloopers. I think Eric's a pretty busy guy in the film room. I know he's cutting up film right now, so that might be a project Rob and I have to go through and put together a bloopers film room for the premium subscribers. But if you are a premium subscriber, guys, too, one thing that we're doing now is we're rolling out little short bit audio clips. So today I did a poll on Kelvin Benjamin on my Twitter account and just kind of talked about how the poll came out, my thoughts on it. We're going to start doing some of that stuff. I'm going to have Rob come over, talk about some different things, just quick, short, 3 to 5 minute talks. And those go out to just premium subscribers. So again, it's $10 for the year from the time that you subscribe. You're going to get that type of content. You're going to get our Slack channel. You're going to get access to the video library that Eric puts together, it's a pretty massive collection. So for those of you that don't have Game Pass or things like that, or even if you have Game Pass, I have it. And it's really hard to go through play-by-play and find the important plays. There's a lot of garbage in there. And if you don't have a trained eye of what to look for, Eric's already breaking those clips down and put it into nice little pieces for you, nice little packages. So that's all there. Plus all the premium content, sneak peeks. And something cool that Eric's going to be rolling out here soon is film sessions, group film sessions. So we'll get on like a Google Hangouts or some type of thing like this. And he's going to run through how he watches film. So it's something I'm interested to jump into because I try to watch Game Pass, but I'm not fooling anybody. I'm not a scout or anything. So the more I can learn about watching the game, the better. I don't know if are you going to jump in on any of those, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to hype up myself or anything. But before I even joined as a writer, I was always following Eric and kind of promoting his stuff just because it's so good. And he's really one of the best that does it right now. And I still pick his brain at everything. I read all of his articles, and the Slack channel is great. I mean, there's a bunch of people in there just sharing their thoughts, and Eric's kind of the top-notch scout, really, and he really knows what he's talking about. So you really learn a lot with that premium content, and I think it was worth it before I joined, and I was willing to pay that every single time. So
Yeah. Yeah. And so now it's the $10, man. You really can't beat it. Like I said, draft guides and stuff. I'm sure I'll buy a bunch of guys' training camp guides because if you're a Bills fan like me, you just can't get enough content. And so if I wasn't a member of Cover One, I would pay for it. No questions asked. It'd be super easy for me. But definitely go check out the app too. Download the app because this podcast will be up there, I think, later tonight. And when it does come up, if you already missed it, it'll be a push notification. So it's just nice to have. We've got a bunch of people, very happy that they get those push notifications because they're not always on Twitter. Believe it or not everyone's always on Twitter. Unlike Rob and I, they're ruffling feathers. So not everyone's out there on Twitter doing those things. So sometimes you need a push notification, but go check that out. And as always, like us on all your social media accounts, things like that. As for me, I don't have a ton of content coming out besides the podcast and doing the stuff for the premium subscribers. I do have a new wallpaper that I made. It's up at my Twitter account at Aaron Quinn 716. Go download. It's free. It's just I made a wallpaper of the schedule, both for desktop and for your phone. So go check it out. It's just for fun. And I do edits and stuff like that. So if you ever have a Bills edit that you want to check out, zip me a line and I'll do that. But Rob, where can we find you, man? If people are hearing you for the first time, which I doubt, where would they be able to find you at?
On Twitter at Rob Quinn 619. I do like Josh Allen. I love Jim Kelly, and so go easy on me.
Best friends with John Warrow.
No, we made up. We're good.
That's
our buddy now. Yeah, we're buds now.
That's right.
You have to just come around on Matt Milano. So that's it.
There you go, man. I still wanted to see that podcast unfold. Maybe we'll get it on here sometime.
We'll get them on.
We'll get them on. So, yeah, as for me, again, you can follow me, Aaron Quinn, 716. And then make sure you go and follow Cover One. You know how to find people on social media. So find Cover One on all your social media accounts and get over to iTunes, like, subscribe, and give us a review, guys. We really can't do it without the fans. We appreciate everybody that comes on live and joins the conversation. Go back and listen to the previous offensive ones. Get them all in because we're heading over to the defense. I'm definitely going to have Rob come on for some of the defense because I know he's super excited about the Treys, Tremaine Edmonds, and Trey White. So I want to get him on and get his views on that stuff too. So stay tuned, guys. We're pumping out tons of content. It's only ramping up from here. And I appreciate you coming on as always. And go Bills.